For 12 years, Frank had watched the same parking garage fill and empty like clockwork. Business executives in expensive suits who barely acknowledged his existence, until the night three men cornered a young woman near the elevator, and Frank's training from 30 years ago kicked in faster than his arthritis ever could. Welcome to the real tale. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden courage and unexpected justice, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. Real stories matter. Center City Towers parking garage rose in the heart of downtown. 12 floors of concrete and steel, a maze where thousands of cars came and went daily. This was one of the city's most prestigious business centers, housing finance companies, law firms, and tech startups. People came here to make money. Big money. Frank Morrison had worked the night shift here for 12 years, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Monday through Saturday. He preferred the quiet hours, after the office workers went home, leaving only late-working lawyers, cleaning crews, and the occasional executive from a late meeting. During the day, the garage was an anthill of stressed people and honking horns. At night, Frank was on his own. At 69, Frank moved with the careful slowness of someone who had learned that every movement should be calculated. His hair was completely white now, deep lines etched in his face, but his eyes were still sharp, still alert. He wore the same clothes every night, navy blue security shirt, black pants, and steel-toed boots he hadn't changed in years. The younger security guards called him Uncle Frank, with the kind of respect shown to an elder. He never complained, never caused trouble, just did his job quietly and got through his shifts. As a parking attendant, he was perfect, reliable, punctual, and invisible. What nobody knew, what they never even thought to wonder, was that Frank Morrison had served 27 years with the United States Navy SEAL teams, 2 tours in Vietnam, 1 in the Gulf War, and 3 classified operations that never appeared in any official records, Team 6, Team 2, and finally instructor position at Coronado. But that was another life, another man. The Navy had taught him to watch, assess, and act. 12 years of parking duty had taught him patience, endless, tested patience. Most nights, these skills proved more useful than anyone expected. Clock showed 11:30 when it happened. Frank was finishing paperwork in his booth when he heard sounds from the 3rd floor. Not normal. The 3rd floor should have been empty at that hour. The sound was metallic echoing, like someone trying to force something open. Frank checked the monitors. Security cameras showed something on the 3rd floor, but the angle wasn't clear. He grabbed his flashlight, locked his booth, and headed for the elevator. 27 years of training had taught him one thing: approach with suspicion, move quietly, always be prepared. When the elevator opened on the 3rd floor, the first thing Frank heard was a woman's voice. "Please, I'll just get my bag and leave." Frank stopped. There was fear in that voice, real fear. The elevator doors slowly closed behind him, and the garage fell into silence. Frank turned off his flashlight and moved toward the voices, staying close to the wall, keeping his steps silent on the concrete floor. "Don't care about the bag, sweetheart," came a male voice in response, low and threatening. "We're looking for valuable things." Frank peered around the corner. 3 men, early 20s, hoodies and dark clothing, and opposite them, trapped by her Mercedes, a young woman, probably 26 or 27, business clothes, holding her bag and keys. Late-working lawyer, probably. Wrong place, wrong time. "Give us your phone," said one of the men. "Your wallet, too." "Your watch, too," added the third. "Nice watch." Frank assessed the situation. 3 attackers, 1 victim. Weapons? He hadn't seen any yet, but had to assume. Escape routes, stairs too far, elevator too slow. Time to call for help? Number 27 years of SEAL training kicked in automatically. Frank pressed against the wall, turned his flashlight back on, and raised his voice. "Security, this area is closed." The 3 men instantly turned. When they saw Frank, they looked at each other, then laughed. "Seriously?" said the tall one. "Old security guard?" "Come on, Grandpa." "Get out of here," said another. "This isn't your business." Frank took a step forward, shining his flashlight on them. "Ma'am, get in your car and drive away." The woman started to move, but one of the men grabbed her arm. "She's not going anywhere," he said. "Neither are you." That's when Frank realized just how big a mistake they'd made. The tall man pulled something from his pocket, a knife, probably a switchblade. "Last time I'm telling you, old man, get lost or what?" Frank asked, his voice unchanged. Those 3 words set everything in motion. The tall man attacked, knife coming toward Frank. But Frank was no longer a 69-year-old security guard. He was a man who had trained for 27 years in the world's most dangerous places, served in Team 6 operations, and knew lethal force intimately. Frank deflected the attack, grabbed the man's wrist, and disarmed him in one motion. Then, old muscle memory kicked in. A knee strike to the solar plexus, and the man collapsed breathless to the ground. The second man tried to attack in shock. Frank threw a punch at him, calculated, precise, effective. The man staggered back and hit the concrete wall. The third man released the woman and started to run. Frank didn't pursue him. He had completed his mission. Total time, 18 seconds. Frank dropped the knife, illuminated the 2 unconscious men with his flashlight, then turned to the trembling woman. "Are you okay?" he asked, his breathing unchanged. The woman nodded, still in shock. "How did you—" "I'm calling the police," Frank said. "Wait in your car." Frank pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "Police and ambulance, please. Center City Towers parking garage, 3rd floor. Assault attempt, 2 suspects neutralized." The operator asked questions, but Frank gave patient and clear answers. Yes, everyone was safe. No injuries. Yes, he would wait at the scene. Police arrived 10 minutes later. The first responder was Officer Sarah Chen, 8 years of experience. She wasn't expecting an elderly security guard to have single-handedly neutralized 3 attackers in Center City's parking garage. "Did you do this?" she asked Frank, looking at the 2 men on the ground. "The woman was being attacked," Frank replied. "I intervened." Officer Chen examined the scene. 2 attackers unconscious but no serious injuries. The knife safely set aside. The victim was safe. Everything was textbook perfect. "Sir, can I get information about your background?" Frank handed her his ID. "Security, for security, United States Navy, retired." That explained some of it, but what Chen saw wasn't a normal retired sailor profile. This man had neutralized 3 men in seconds without taking any damage, without breaking a sweat. Detective James Murphy arrived 20 minutes later, followed by the parking manager, ambulance, and a growing crowd of curious onlookers. By midnight, Center City Towers looked like a crime scene. Frank answered their questions with the same composure. Yes, he saw the attack. Yes, he intervened. Yes, it was self-defense. No, he wasn't injured. No, he didn't consider himself a hero. "I was just doing my job," he told a reporter when asked how he felt about being a hero. "But you could have been hurt. Weren't you scared?" Frank thought about this. Fear is a luxury you can't afford when innocent people might get hurt. The reporter sensed there was more to the story. "You mentioned you're a Navy veteran. Did that training help tonight?" "Training helps in every situation," Frank said simply. When Detective Murphy reviewed the security camera footage, he saw the full picture. The cameras had recorded everything: the attack, Frank's intervention, the lightning-fast resolution. "Jesus," Murphy muttered, watching the footage for the 3rd time. "This guy moves like special forces." He paused the video at the moment Frank deflected the attack. Most 69-year-olds struggled climbing stairs. Frank had moved like a man 30 years younger with training better than anything Murphy had seen outside action movies. Murphy made a phone call. 30 minutes later, Frank's military records appeared on his computer screen, at least the unclassified parts. Petty Officer First Class Frank Morrison, U.S. Navy. Enlisted 1975. Retired 2002. Multiple deployments, multiple decorations, and the detail that took Murphy's breath away: Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs were the Navy's elite special operations unit. These weren't regular sailors. They were warriors who operated in the harshest conditions, behind enemy lines with minimal support. The kind of men who could work underground, eliminate targets, and disappear as if they were never there. The kind of men who could stop 3 street criminals without effort. Murphy closed the file and looked at Frank, still patiently answering the same questions for the 4th time. The old man had never mentioned his SEAL background, hadn't bragged, hadn't tried to impress, hadn't even mentioned it when explaining the events. He was just a parking attendant who happened to be one of the deadliest men Murphy had ever encountered. The story hit local news, then social media, then national outlets. Within 48 hours, the security footage had been viewed over 3 million times. News crews arrived from 5 states. For parking, Hero went viral. Frank hated it all. He took 3 days off to avoid the media attention, but by Thursday night he was back in his parking booth, following the same routine as if nothing had happened. The young security guards looked at him differently now, not with the casual familiarity they'd shown before, but with something approaching awe. "Uncle Frank," asked Mike, a college student who worked weekends, "were you really Special Forces?" Frank finished checking a customer's parking exit ticket before answering. "I was a sailor, but like, elite sailors, right?" "The news said Navy SEALs." "Just sailors," Frank said quietly. What he didn't tell Mike, what he didn't tell the reporters, what he didn't tell anyone, was that his service record only told half the story. The classified half, the part that would never appear in any news report, included 3 years with Team 6, DevGru operations and missions whose names were never recorded. Team 6 was elite even among Navy SEALs, terrorist hunting, hostage rescue, high-value target operations. Frank had spent 3 years on the world's most dangerous missions, doing things that would remain classified even when files were opened. The men and women he'd served with were legends. Most didn't make it home. Those who did never talked about what they'd done. Frank had spent 30 years never mentioning Team 6, and he wasn't about to start now. But news travels in certain circles. Friday morning, Frank arrived at work to find 3 men waiting at the parking entrance. 50s, gray hair, simple clothes, but their bearing gave them away. Spine straight, eyes alert, the kind of carriage that never fully disappears. "Frank Morrison?" asked the middle-aged one. "Parking opens at 7, Frank replied, searching for his keys. "We're not here to park." The man extended his hand. "Senior Chief Marcus Williams, Navy SEALs, retired." Frank stopped. In the special operations world, name and reputation meant everything. Legends were told across generations. If 3 retired SEALs had found him, someone had been talking. "For Senior Chief, the woman who was there Tuesday night is our daughter, lawyer working at the law firm. She came to thank you for what you did, but couldn't find your address." Frank waited. "Also," Williams continued, "Team 6 stories circulate in certain circles. We lost someone in Mogadishu in the 90s. Someone named Frank Morrison brought him back. Never reported, never got a medal. Just came home." Frank's expression didn't change, but something moved behind his eyes. "How do you know my name?" "Because you're our legend, Frank. The man who did that operation, but the man who never talked." The second man stepped forward. "Petty Officer Rodriguez, active duty. My commander said he wanted to meet you." The third man quietly handed over a business card. "Master Chief Thompson, Bud/S instructor. Looking for real stories to tell the young ones." Frank pocketed the card without looking. "No stories to tell, Frank," Williams said gently. "What you did last night isn't something any 69-year-old man could do. It's the kind of thing these young ones need to know about." "What should the young ones know?" "That service doesn't end. It just changes uniforms." Frank opened the parking gate and held it. "There's coffee inside if you want." They sat in the break room, 4 warriors who had served in different generations, but lived by the same code. Williams had done 3 tours in Afghanistan. Rodriguez was still active duty. Thompson had been training young SEALs for 10 years. Frank had served before all of them, in quieter times. "You know the media's calling you a hero," Williams said. "Media calls a lot of people heroes. Doesn't make it true. What would you call it then?" Frank thought. "Tuesday night." Williams laughed. "Fair enough. But you know this won't blow over? When Team 6 stories come out, every news channel in the country will want to interview you. Stories won't come out. Frank, your story's already viral. Someone's going to dig deeper. Someone always does." Frank set down his coffee cup. "Then I'll deal with it when it happens." They talked for another 30 minutes, about service, about transitioning to civilian life, about the difficulty of being ordinary after being extraordinary. When they left, Williams handed Frank a second business card. "My daughter's number, Jennifer Chen. She wants to thank you personally." Frank pocketed the card. "Not necessary. It is for us. And Frank, if you need anything at all, you call. We're brothers. Brothers don't leave each other behind." "I know," Frank said. "We never did." Saturday night, Jennifer Chen came to the parking garage. Frank was doing his security rounds when the young woman approached, this time not fearful, but determined. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Jennifer. From Tuesday night, that woman." Frank looked up from his flashlight. The woman was about 28, well-dressed, strong, and intelligent-looking, but there was still a trace of that night in her eyes. "Are you okay?" "Because of you," Jennifer hesitated. "My father told me who you are. Navy SEALs, Team 6. Frank returned to his work. "Your father likes to talk. He said the same thing, that you never talk, but I need to talk." Frank stopped and looked at her. "That night," Jennifer continued, "there were 3 men. There was a knife. I had no chance. Then you came and 18 seconds later it was over." 18 seconds. Did you count? "Security camera recording. I got it from the police." Jennifer took a breath. "You only see people that fast in movies, but you were real." Frank continued with his flashlight. "Training never goes away. Why do you work here? I mean, someone like you." "What do you mean, someone like me?" Jennifer searched for the answer. "Legend, hero, the man who saved my life." Frank stopped and turned to her. "I'm a parking attendant. Someone was attacking you. I intervened. That's all." "But, Jennifer," Frank said gently, "did your father tell you that real heroes don't wear uniforms?" "He did." "Did he tell you the real secret?" Jennifer shook her head. "Real heroes don't know they're heroes. They just do what needs to be done." Jennifer looked at him for a long time. "Can I thank you again?" "Once was enough." "Once is never enough." Frank smiled. The first smile of the night. "Then stay safe. That's enough thanks for me." As Jennifer left, Frank watched her exit the parking garage, this time with confident steps, not fearful. She was a good lawyer, a strong woman. He knew she'd be safe now. Frank finished his rounds and returned to his booth. The garage was quiet, just distant traffic sounds and the hum of fluorescent lights. Hours remained before he'd drive home in his 15-year-old Ford pickup. Sitting in his booth, Frank thought about the week that had changed everything, but changed nothing. He was still a parking attendant, still working nights, checking tickets, trying to remain invisible. But somewhere between Tuesday night and Saturday morning, something had shifted. He wasn't alone anymore. His brothers had found him. The woman he'd saved had thanked him. And for the first time in 30 years, Frank Morrison felt not forgotten. Because sometimes heroes take off their uniforms but never stop serving. They just serve differently, more quietly, when no one is watching. And Team 6 training never goes away. It just waits until that moment when it's needed. As Frank drove home in his pickup, he knew he'd be back here Monday night. Same booth, same mission, same quiet vigil. Because there were still people in the city who needed protecting. And Frank Morrison was still the man who protected them. Some warriors fight with weapons. Others fight with quiet watch, steady presence, and the unshakable conviction that doing right matters more than being noticed. Frank had spent 69 years learning the difference, and he planned to spend however many years he had left proving it. So tell me, do you know someone who seems ordinary but becomes extraordinary when needed? Someone who carries their strength quietly, serving without expecting recognition? Share their names in the comments. Frank Morrisons are everywhere, quiet protectors, invisible heroes. If this story moved you, subscribe to The Real Tale. We're here to remind you that real heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they just wear security shirts. And that's enough to change the world. Until next time, remember, the most powerful stories aren't always the loudest ones. Sometimes they're lived by men waiting in dark city parking garages. See you in the next story.